Hello and welcome along to Al's Geek Lab. On the channel last time, I took you along a journey of upgrading an XT which has a processor around 5 MHz onto running a 386 and then turning it into a 486. And after all of that, I decided it still wasn't enough performance. I wanted more. And so with the help of my Patreon supporters, check it out, patreon.com/alsgeeklab, I got this thing, which is an IBM Blue Lightning. Anyway, it is like seriously janky looking. I mean, just look at it. It just screams weird. Anyway, I'm gonna see if I can get this thing to work. Before we move on with the video, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to PCBWay for supporting Al's Geek Lab. Whether you're recreating a vintage motherboard or testing a fresh microcontroller idea, PCBWay will turn your Gerber files into polished boards in just a few days. Pick your solder mask color, add silkscreen, and if you like, let their team handle full component assembly so it arrives ready to boot. And guess what? You can get started from just $5. And if you need more than just PCBs, they also offer CNC machining, 3D printing, and sheet metal work, all from the same dashboard. Visit their website today at PCBWay.com. We'd like to thank PCBWay for keeping our projects powered. Now, let's get back to the video. Once again, the card comes out. Always get a bit nervous bringing this bad lad out. It's not the smallest of cards. I think I also need to remove the CoPro on this because I think this chip has a CoPro of sorts built in, so we can see the 87 DLC. I believe that's a math core there. So we shouldn't need the CoPro on here. So I'll get that out. And obviously the DLC. What really threw me is the ability to find out which pin was pin 1 on this bad boy. Have a look here. This sort of notch thing, sort of triangular thing, kind of looks like it would go this way round, meaning there, which is damn close to the parity error memory board. And then if we look at the actual CPU socket, I don't know if it's easy to make out, but there's a slight change in texture on the actual socket. Really hard to make out, but there's a slight change in the top right corner there. And that's really it. So it's kind of freaking me out as to where pin 1 is. Easy to make a mistake. Here it is. Jank City. Aha! All those little fans are running away. I can hear them buzzing. Sounds like it's going to take off. This is with no drivers at all. Let's have a look at speed test. 486 at 32 MHz. 26 MHz AT with 2 MHz 287. Wow, that's weird. So that compares less performant than the DLC 40. Whoa, CheckIt looks really weird. Look at that. All the characters are messed up. 3234 is what we got out of CheckIt on the DLC 40, and we're getting 3315. So slightly faster. Interestingly, the clock speed was at 130 MHz versus this one, which is at 33.07, which is a bit more realistic, I guess. The CheckIt math speed is 50.7 whetstones on the DLC 40, and this one is slightly faster again. That makes sense. 1126.1 on the DLC 40 with the FPU at 20 MHz, and this is 1212.2 whetstones with a 30 MHz FPU. 3D Bench 1. Still a slideshow. .6. So it reckons it's a classic 486 or DX2 or DX4 running at around 32 megahertz. It reckons it's got assumed cache of 8K, but we look at cache check, it's not so happy about things. And then down here we're seeing this machine does not appear to have any cache. As with most things, when you buy them off eBay, they don't generally tend to come with device drivers, and this was no exception. So the video that you've seen so far is basically me without any of those device drivers, and it took me a long time to actually track down device drivers on various different websites, and I found it eventually on this particular page on Vogons, and some person called Theopoa, I don't know if I'm saying that right at all, but this person had managed to compile a whole big bucket of drivers and documentation, and one of those was one that actually worked for me, and that was the rev2 486.sys. There was also the original IODATA drivers, but they were in Japanese, so I couldn't tell whether they were working or not. Anyway, a quick update to my config.sys to add the rev2 486 device driver in with the suggested settings from the Vogons website, a reboot later, and things started to look a lot more reasonable. The first thing I ran was this cache checking tool, which showed that indeed the cache was enabled and ready to write through. Next up, good old speedtest 6. And it shows a 90 megahertz CPU performing like a 276 megahertz AT. SpeedSys was quite strange. It found 100 megahertz 486DX, but with a speed rating of 6.54, somewhere between a 486 and a 386, so not a great benchmark. Norton Sysinfo though was more favourable, showing a 96 MHz PC with an 88.1 benchmark. That probably puts it somewhere between a 486 DX33 and a 486 DX66 of some description. Next on to the SuperScape VGA test, where in the last test without the drivers we got a paltry 3.6 frames per second. In this test we got a much more reasonable 7.2 frames per second. Still not fantastic, but you know, we are talking about 3D graphics here moving about the screen. On to CheckIt then, and on the last evaluation without the drivers we got 3,315 dry stones, or 33.07 megahertz. Now we are off the scale, it cannot compute the number, so this maximum tally of 23,807 or 99.4 megahertz tops out the score here. The FPU score previously was 1212.2 whetstones versus this topped out score of 3000.7 whetstones. And now of course the moment you've all been waiting for. How well does it play Doom? I had this of course set up for the previous configuration where everything was just a little bit low quality. As you can see here, I'm in potato mode and at the lowest resolution setting, and you can see that I've got things like the pistol here basically blacked out to give me that bit more oomph. So of course this is fast Doom. There's a few minor modifications here to give us more performance, but as you can see I'm getting a pretty respectable 20 frames per second or thereabouts. Sometimes it's a little bit higher, sometimes a little lower. Now if I change the display settings and use a little bit more detail, I'll put it on to low detail and put back that player rendering detail. This is what it looks like. What do you think? Still getting a reasonably respectable 12 or 13 or even more frames per second, and it's certainly starting to look a lot more like the real thing. Playing absolutely fine for me for the needs that I would have on this sort of a game. Yeah, absolutely not stellar frames per second, but I'm not going to be doing any multiplayer deathmatch where this sort of stuff really matters. But as you can see, the game looks like Doom. It plays like Doom on probably a low-end 486 or maybe a really high-end 386, but certainly looks to me like I'm playing Doom. All the while, remember that you've just got to bear in mind that this is, for all intents and purposes, still very much an XT computer. Moving on then to level 2, let's have a look at what it looks like when we increase the graphics quality all the way to not top settings, because that would probably be unfair to this little 8-bit bus, but let's ram up the quality of the graphics to high quality. So it pretty much looks like how you'd play it on a real normal PC of like Pentium or above quality. Now, what you have to bear in mind here is that this is really for processors that are probably in the region of 486 DX4 100 or thereabouts. Certainly not for playing on a XT computer with an 8-bit data bus, as well as a video card on that 8-bit data bus, right? A low-end VGA card as well. So, of course, we're not seeing performance that is atypical of that sort of machine. We're only seeing 7 frames a second, and of course that will go down in some places, maybe again come up a little bit. So you can tweak with the settings and change your bus or your CPU performance to maybe make a little bit of a difference, but I have it set to Cyrix 486, which is possibly about right, but I flicked it on to play with an Intel 486 and I changed a few other little settings, and here and there it did make a minor difference, but in the end, ultimately, from a high detail perspective, it's not that much fun. Certainly is playable, but I would dare say when the levels get more and more involved, the complexity goes up, your screen frame rate is going to go down even further. So my sweet spot, I guess, for playing this on this machine would be in the low detail mode. Certainly potato mode is just a bit chunky for me. I think that, you know, this certainly plays a lot better now on low detail, and that's kind of what I expected. So all things considered, I'm just thinking that this is really a marvel to be able to play Doom and do anything half useful on a machine that was ultimately made for monochrome graphics with Lotus 123 and a maximum of 640k. Here we are on a machine which now has 4 megabytes of RAM plus a little bit extra. It also has a processor which is somewhere in the region of a, I don't know, maybe 90 megahertz, 95 megahertz, something in that region. And the biggest issue, obviously, if you're following along here, really is that everything has to go back along that data bus. So obviously video writes and reads, that goes over an 8-bit data bus, not a 16-bit data bus, and not a 32-bit data bus like the 386 or 486 PC itself would. No, we're going back through an 8-bit data bus. So incredibly amazing just to see Doom even run, because we couldn't even have protected mode memory back in the day when this computer came out. We're obviously running here in full protected mode, 32-bit mode, 32-bit CPU, and yeah, just incredible. So this machine itself, you know, I love this machine because it holds sentimental value for me. I brought it over from the UK many years ago. It's pretty much 40 years old, and it's still doing things now which I guess we could call useful. So, well, what do you think? Should I take this further? Is it crazy that I got this far already? Is there something else that I should be doing with this? Post your comments below and let me know. I'm always excited and interested to hear what crazy ideas you guys all have, because sometimes I've got pretty crazy ideas, but then sometimes you guys really surprise me and come up with just crazy stuff. So I'm willing to try it if you're willing to think it up. Anyway, if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, then please press that subscribe button
I know that some of you kind of watch the videos and then kind of say to me, oh, I didn't realize I wasn't subscribed. So yeah, hit that subscribe button if you aren't subscribed already. And if you really like what I do, then head over to Patreon, patreon.com/AlsGeekLab. I'll have early release videos over there, some extra content from time to time, and well, a bunch of good people as well. You can also check me out on the BBS, bbs.alsgeeklab.com, port 2323. We've got a Discord server as well that you can actually connect to from the BBS, and lots more besides. You can check us out on the web, on the Instagrams, on the X, on the all the things, so check us out there too. Until next time, thanks very much for watching, and be excellent to each other. Bye for now.
Here we are on a real machine playing Doom. It's about 8 frames a second, but this is in high detail mode. The machine is very noisy. Those 2 little fans, oh my goodness. But, you know, it's a small price to pay when I can play Doom properly. This is cool. Die, alien scum.